And in the mix, you have basically headed up a committee to push census numbers, to push getting those forms filled out. You got to be pleased with the results.
Absolutely. I'm really happy to be here this morning, and I just can't wait to get this information out. So I'm going to jump right into it. Like I said, 1 year before the 2010 census count occurred, we formed a committee, and this committee that basically the job was to promote the census and basically try to get as many people counted as possible. And the results, I have to say, are pretty amazing. And you can't just give credit to the committee. You have to give credit to over the past 10 years, what Levelland's done over the past 10 years, our different leaders, economic development efforts, people willing to invest in Levelland. That's really what the result is. Our 2000 census count in Levelland was 12,866. In 2009, the census came out and told us that our population was closer to 12,465. Well, that was wrong. Our 2010 census count, are you ready for this, guys?
All right,
I need a drum roll,
please.
13,542 people.
All
That's
right.
an increase of 5% from the 2000 count and about 9% from the 2009 estimates. As far as Hockley County is concerned, it's unfortunate, but Levelland was the only city that grew. Hockley County as a whole grew by 1%, which is only one of 5 counties in the 15-county region that grew. So that's promising that Hockley County grew, but it's unfortunate. Sundown dropped by 7.18%. Smyard down 1.25%. Anton down 6.17%. Ropesville down 16%. Opdyke down 7%. But,
speaking to those numbers, Eric, and we had just talked about this in the school board with reflection to small populations.
Right.
When you are talking about smaller populations, every person, every form counts huge.
Absolutely.
Because that's definitely skews the percentages. When you're talking about a little bigger area, one person doesn't count quite as hard against you as not having the forms filled out for these smaller towns. So, looking at these other small towns that you just mentioned, as well as others around the state, maybe this will be a wake-up call that,
Absolutely.
how important it is to get in there and really facilitate a good group of people that are ready to roll up their sleeves and go to work to get those forms in.
And I'll say this, Levelland had about a 74% male participation rate, and then the census workers came out and they basically knocked out the rest of it door to door. Some of these other communities that decreased, they had some of the lower male participation rates. So this might not be accurate, folks, but it's hard to know. Now we've got to wait another 10 years to basically have the opportunity to do an accurate count. But there's some entities that were low as in the 40% male participation rate. So I think that's really probably the reality of why these numbers are a little bit lower than they should be.
Now, Eric, what do these numbers mean? Now that they're in,
Right.
now that, they've closed the books on the 2010 census, what does that mean when you do start to see some growth somewhere and, all around, there may not be as good of results for other people, but of course we're going to play off of ours because we
Sure,
like that.
absolutely.
we're glad that we saw growth in our population. So what does that mean for us financially?
Financially, that's kind of why I brought Dave with me here today. This is really going to be huge. And we know we've been growing. We've been telling people we've been growing, but we haven't had the numbers to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that want to invest in Levelland, but they see our numbers and they just can't. They don't see the numbers. They've got to see the numbers, and that's realistic. And I'm going to let Dave talk to you a little bit about that as far as what this means for economic development and what kind of opportunities we're going to have now that we have these numbers.
Well, one thing about being on the radio, you can't see the grins that Eric and I have on our face. We're both smiling ear to ear. We were sitting patiently yesterday, or not so patiently, waiting for the numbers to drop. But we knew that, like Eric said, we knew we were growing. We knew Levelland had things happening. But when we would tell our prospects, our retail development prospects that would come in, a lot of times they would get down to the feasibility and start working the numbers, and they pull them off the census, and it was showing a drop from 12.8 to 12.4, and that's just a huge number to them, and it's very spooky for retail development. Ask people to invest in a community that on paper looks like we're shrinking, and so we're very excited because we have some validation, even though we went out and used third-party numbers to try to counter that. In the end, they were using census numbers. And so we're very excited. We think this puts us in a great position. You couple the new census numbers with all the investments that's being made, with the Mallet Event Center, the new dorms at SPC, the Allied Health expansion, the new banks, and the different companies that are building new buildings in town. Just all of that investment coupled with now some solid numbers on the census side should really propel us in the retail development side. Now, that doesn't mean a Chili's is going to come tomorrow, but it sure helps pave the way, and we're very excited. And not only that, but a lot of the census numbers and a lot of that, a lot of the grant monies we receive in all the different areas come from census numbers. And if we're growing or small, if we're growing or decreasing. So based on our numbers, hopefully we'll see a larger share of some of that dollars as they flow from the federal government and state levels. The census will help us with that, and we're just very excited. We started spreading the word, and it's kind of interesting. Even though Erik and his crew did a phenomenal job getting the word out and getting people to get their numbers in, I still had people, posting them back on Twitter and Facebook saying, "Hey, I didn't get, my family wasn't counted," or whatever. So, we're still bigger than we think we are, but at least now we're showing positive growth. And really what that does for the next 10 years, all the projections will be based on what's happening today. And so hopefully, 10 years from now, the projection will show that we're growing still, and we're not back in the same situation. So, very excited, good things coming. And I really do want to commend Erik and the work and that his team and his guys put in. They worked really hard to make sure these numbers, they understood the importance and really had a passion about making sure it counted. And sure enough, when the numbers come out, their work has shown up.
That's a lot of efforts, and when you're doing it, you're wondering if it's going to make a difference. You're wondering if all those late nights and all that paperwork and all that pushing of papers is going to actually do what you're looking to do. So time will tell, and we will certainly, hopefully, see some interest and some new businesses that are looking at us a little more seriously now and seeing a positive growth. I think it's important to note, Dave, that a lot of those people, they're not going to send a scout crew over here. I mean, the only thing they're ever going to look at to gain interest on just a yes or no, do we want to proceed with even the next step of going and putting somebody on the ground there to look and to really research locally what the economy is actually like, is those census numbers. They're going to sweep through the web. They're going to look at those numbers on there, and that may be as far as they go. So showing a positive growth, huge. Well,
that's we can spark their interest. We can get them to start looking, but they start on the internet and they start and not necessarily our website, but they go third party looking. For resources, and the census numbers is usually where they start. And so, we're very excited. It's going to take some time for all the numbers to kind of get out and filter out to all the different websites and get things changed over. But really, this is a big story. When you look at our region, Levelland's bucking the trend as far as rural communities that are growing versus shrinking. And, we didn't keep pace with Lubbock. But we did pretty well, and so we're very excited, and hopefully, we can play off some of Lubbock's growth and some of the numbers and things that they put up. People will also say, well, and also Levelland, grew, and so there's opportunity out there. So
absolutely. Now, Erik, before we let you two go, let's talk a little bit about where people can find these numbers, because there's a lot of numbers people out there. They're really, really interested to see it for themselves, really get to digest that information, and there's a ton of data available.
Basically, today about 2 o'clock, the census is going to put the data on an organized format on American Fact Finder. It's basically, if you just go on, just Google American Fact Finder Census, you'll find it. And basically there you can break down Hockley County, Levelland, and any numbers in the region. It'll be a lot more organized. There is a file you can download right now. It's on the Census website, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a huge zip file. It took Dave and I a while to go through it, but it will be on American Fact Finder in a very organized format this afternoon if you just go to the Census website.
They can also, we put a link on our blog at golevelland.com/blog. There's a story about the census, and at the very end, there's a link to where they can go out and grab that information. So
it's also really interesting because there's a map there that you can hover over different. Where did you find that, Jody? Okay. Eric told you not to. You're not listening very well. But you can actually hover over different areas and you can find some information. So that's just a nice little graphic that, kind of gives you a visual representation of what's going on. But guys, huge amount of work. The efforts have paid off. I mean, to see those kind of numbers increase, especially in rural West Texas. And, we say this again and again. It is the reason that we get ignored in Austin so much of the time is because, we just don't have the numbers to increase our representation, to increase, our power, if you will, with those powers that be in Austin. So, you know what? This will at least give people a cause to pause and take a little second look at West Texas and what's going on out here, because there's some great people and some great things, and we're not going anywhere.
That's right.
All right. Well, Eric, any final thoughts?
Just kind of one more final number. As a region, we grew by 9% to 411,000. So, I think Austin's going to have to start looking a little bit closer to West Texas. And like I said, we're really pleased with these numbers, and I really want to thank you and all the other Complete Count Committee members, anybody who's played in the growth of Levelland for the past 10 years. This is all kind of took various people to make this a complete success, and I think we're really happy with these numbers, and I'm glad we get to work with these numbers for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. And Dave, final thoughts?
Well, we want people to continue to invest in Levelland, and remember that we're progressive on purpose, and it takes the local folks believing in our community and continuing to invest, and local leadership continuing to put things in place to allow us to be progressive and to allow those businesses to be successful. So continue to invest in Levelland and invest in progress.
All right. Thank you. Well said. And on that note, Jody, let's take a quick break.